Welcome back. Welcome to lesson 1B with the Arduino and electronics today. Just look down here and we'll see what you need to do today. Some things you've got to do. You're going to build the circuit on page 26 and submit a picture of it. You're going to build a series circuit on page 28 and submit a picture of that working. And then you will build a parallel circuit on page 29 and submit a picture of that. When you are done, you can read over the parts list in the book again and understand the parts a little bit better. You can read ahead to the next project. You can look at the things in your kit, look at the other parts, kind of see what you have, maybe organize your box a bit, or just keep busy. One thing, like I said, this is a project-based course in a technically shop setting, so we have to go one at a time. Everybody has to get the project done and then we can move on to the next. So you're going to have free time if you're a hard worker, if you're a fast worker. Remember, you can always bring something to read, bring something to do. I'm not going to complain with whatever you're doing in your free time as long as you're keeping up with the course, being helpful. But stay busy. You can always do things with the Arduino that aren't part of the class. Once you get a little more interested in it, I can give you an extra kit. You could build separate projects. I've had students go and find, they've searched other things you can build with the Arduino starter kit, and there's lists of them, right? And you can kind of like find projects that you like to do, and I'd help you with those. So this is your three things you're going to do. You're going to build 3 circuits and submit pictures of them working, and then there's some things that you can do if you're done ahead of time. I'll bring that back at the end just to remind you. So the first thing to know, you are going to be looking, you should be comfortable with the kind of parts and stuff now. And you're going to build your first circuit on page 26. A couple things before we talk about this circuit. One of the major problems that you might have is that you'll get a wire. Let's see, do I have a wire here? I'll use just a resistor, or here, let's just take an old wire here. Sometimes these little pieces of wire here, oh sorry, there you can see it now, they break off in one of these notches or one of these holes on the breadboard. So you go like this and then it breaks off and you can't get it out and it's stuck deep down there. Now, a couple things you could do. The first thing I would suggest, well, obviously if it's sticking out enough, you can use tweezers. That's an easy way, but I find tweezers for the really tough ones don't do the job. The next thing you could try is a thumbtack or something like that, or a needle, and you can simply go in on an angle and kind of stab the wire and pry it out, and that normally works pretty good. And the last thing you could do, and I would suggest getting me to do it, but if you're at home or you're working somewhere else, you can use something like an X-Acto knife, something like this, and you can actually kind of cut away a bit of the plastic, right? Kind of make the hole bigger until you get the tip of the knife in, wedge against the wire, and pry it out like that, and you'll actually cut into the wire as you're pulling it out. So that's just a common kind of troubleshooting problem. The other biggest troubleshooting problem with these boards is the screws come loose or the legs become loose as well. Other than that, you should be good for a while, and we might have problems fitting parts onto the board, and we can come up with creative ways of doing that. But let's take a look at your first circuit. I'm going to be very quick today because you're just building stuff. Now, one thing I'm going to stress for all 3 circuits that you're building, and for every circuit that you build, always follow the path of the power. What does that mean? When you're wiring, always set your positive and your negative wire up first, obviously. And then now you know this whole strip here is positive. You can go positive out of there anywhere you like. And then at the end, you always go back to negative. So you'd set your positive wire. The first thing you should put in then is your resistor, and you've got to be very careful about the number and the line that it's on, and you put your resistor. Now you have blue 220 resistors. If you look on later on, I think it is page 41, you actually have that type of 220 resistor. So it's going to look a little different than there, but it does say 220 in the schematic, so you should be able to use the codes to figure out what type of resistor you need. That's going to be a very important part of this class. We can't be babying you with finding resistors every single project. So you're going to have to be responsible enough to see what type of resistor you need, what it might look like depending on the diagram on page 41, I believe, and you're going to have to go from there. So always wire in order. So start with the positive, put your resistor in, then put your switch in, because see, it's power goes here through the resistor, it runs to the switch. If you close the switch, the power connects through the switch. There's this strip now has power. We wire out of that. We wire into the LED light. It goes through the light. Now this strip has power, and we run that power back to negative, which goes to ground. So always wire in that order as the electricity flows, because you can see here, power, resistor, button, LED, back to ground. That's how you should build your circuit. Don't just randomly start putting things on the board and make it kind of look like the picture. Follow the flow of power as much as you possibly can. So this will be the first thing you need to wire. You'll need to wire this circuit. It's going to go positive to resistor to the switch. If you close the switch, it flows through back to this strip, wire, resist to LED, through the anode, out the cathode. So the positive side, which is the side that is longer, and you put a little bend in the wire there. Note the bend in the diagram, and then back to ground. So what you'll do is you will wire that, and then you will take a picture of it working. So here I have wired it, and look at, yes, I have used the blue 220 resistor, which is probably what you'll have in the kit. Could you have used a different resistor? Absolutely. Like this one. You could have used this one, but you probably won't have that one in your kit. You'll have ones that look very similar, but when you read the code, you'll be like, oh, that's not a 220. So what you'll do is you'll wire it up. You'll make sure you got everything right. Notice how I got the anode and cathode wired properly here, right? I've got my jumper cables running to power and ground. When I press the switch, the light will go on. You will take a picture of yourself pressing the switch and the light going on, and I will know it's yours, and you will submit it as part of the assignment later. The second circuit you will wire today will look like, I've got a couple Arduino kits out today. I'm having some fun. Let's see. Let's plug this in. There we go. So I've got power. Now, that's what it's going to look like. It's a 220. The only thing you've done is added another switch and added a couple more wires. So let's look at the diagram of the second circuit you will build. And take your time, make the wiring clean. One thing is, you don't have to use the shortest wires possible. You can use a little bit longer wires if it's easier for you to work with. So you don't have to use the tiny wires if it's a tiny wire in the diagram necessarily. If you can, great. But some people like to have a little bit of wire that they can kind of manipulate. It's a little bit easier. So this is the first thing that we need to know. A series circuit. A series circuit means, and this is on page 28, and this is the next one you're going to wire, that there is only one path that electricity can flow if you're going to make this thing work. There is only one way. Let's look at the schematic, because that makes it, this doesn't make it clear. When you just look at that, you're like, but if you look at the schematic, you will know how the electricity flows. From 5 volt through a 220 resistor, through one push button, which is connected to another push button, out the LED, through the LED, and to the ground. So, in order for this to work, I will have to push this button and this button to make it work. I can't just push one or the other. So you will wire it up in order, positive to the 220, to the switch, a wire connected to another switch. If you close it, this will have power. You will wire out of that to this, to the anode, through the LED, out the cathode, down this strip to ground. Pretty cool. Let's see how this one works. If I push this button, nope. If I push this button, nope. But if I push both, I have closed this switch and I've closed this switch so that the electricity continually flow. Ready to go, boom. So you'll take a picture of you holding down both buttons, maybe on an angle, and the light on, and I can see your wiring. You know, give me a little thumbs up there if you want. And that'll be your second thing that you will wire. You could take a picture of one not working, the other not working, and both working. But really, I want to see you pushing both buttons and that everything's wired right. That's the biggest idea there. And for the last project, let me plug this one in here. Yes, I wired up 3 boards today. It was a really Really exciting day for me. Ho, ho, ho. Let's look at this. Now, that was a series circuit, and you're going to need to understand that. One path for electricity to flow versus a parallel circuit, which looks really similar, right? Oh, and by the way, the reason I was using an X-Acto knife to point yesterday was because I was going to show you that X-Acto knife trick. That was like a reminder for me, and then I forgot. So I'll use a pencil from now on to calm you down so I don't knife-wielding teacher. So power to 220. Now, whoa. It can either go, the power goes right to this switch, or it also runs to this switch because this whole strip has power now. So a wire running out of it will have power, and a wire and running to the switch will also have power. If you close that switch, it'll go here to this wire, to the anode, out the cathode to ground. Or if you don't even touch this switch at all, it can run through here, down there, to this switch, which will close, which will also send power. So if you look here in the schematic, 5 volts to 220, and then it runs, it can go through either push button. If you close this switch, you have power running through and it'll work. Or if you just close this switch, you have power running through. If you close them both, it'll still work too. But that is a parallel circuit. If you need help explaining that a little bit more, I can talk to you about it. But follow the electricity. Power, resistor, and then there's 2 ways. Way 1, way 2. Way 2 is through a switch. Way 1, it goes to this switch. If you push either of them, it goes out to the anode. If you push this one, you can follow this strip. It goes out to the anode. And then, of course, they both wire back to ground to complete the circuit. So let's take a look at this one. This is a cool one. That's what it's going to look like. You got your same 220 resistor. A few more modifications on this one. I used a little longer wire on this. If I push this one, if I push this one, it works. My LED came a little loose there. You can kind of feel it. Sometimes you got to kind of push down to make sure your connections are secure, especially with the switches. You got to kind of really push them in there. So if I push this down, it'll work. So you'll take a picture of that. You'll take a picture of pushing that one down and it working. So you need 2 pictures for this one. And you don't need to do a picture of this one, but obviously if you push them both down, it works as well, which is pretty cool. So that is the basics. So once again, to go over it, you will build a circuit on 26, which is just the simple one. You will build the series circuit on page 28, parallel on 29. This one has 2 picks. Read over the parts, look ahead, look at other stuff, or just keep busy with stuff that you want to do. I won't give you a hard time if you're being helpful or not bothering people. No problem there. So that's what you'll submit today on the Google Classroom. And the next lesson is where things get a little bit more real. This is very basic stuff. We're just wiring circuits. We could just put wires and power and lights and make these on a table if we wanted. The breadboard's not really being used to its full power because we haven't started to code. So on the next set of lessons, we're going to first of all learn how to get the app running on a Chromebook or on your computer so that you could write code for the board. And then we'll have our first project where you will wire a board and write code to make it do different things when you push different buttons, which is pretty cool. So submit everything and we'll see you soon. And I hope you're enjoying it so far. Take care.